the greatest miracle of Wes Craven was the intelligence and the legitimacy that he brought into the horror genre. A genre that always kind of has been, still is, considered to be a B genre. And more often than not, it seems to be kind of focused on, okay, how many scares, how many cheap thrills can we get out of the audience in 90 minutes or so? With Wes Craven, he certainly got his scares, but what was truly a value of his films was how they would go for more provocative themes. Like, there's always something to be explored in a Wes Craven film, some kind of a cultural or psychological importance that he would kind of examine. Even with his earliest work, stuff like Last House on the Left and The Hills Have Eyes, testing the limits of so-called a normal type of person in these horrific, unimaginable circumstances. That was always something kind of interest, and that's kind of what put him on the map in the first place. Because I do think kind of in the '70s that was kind of a very real kind of a concern amongst people, and you'd see that in other movies, like Straw Dogs, whatever. With Nightmare on Elm Street, of course, examining how profound dreams can be, but also teenage angst, which he did in not an over-the-top direct kind of way, but in a noticeable type of way, where the main characters in this movie weren't your usual fare, weren't your usual kind of, Tom and Jane, let's kill them type of horror victims. They were characters that had kind of interesting elements to them, which I think is one of the reasons why the film stands so highly today, even amongst all the sequels and remake, whatever. Even something like people under the stairs. He was always kind of applauded for the kind of political allegory of it, of the Reaganomics kind of parallel to it, which is always good. And one theme that always seemed to capture his interest, that he always wanted to examine, probably because he was always under the scrutiny of his entire career of the MPAA and censorship, he always liked to touch upon violence in the media and its effect. Like even something like Shocker, of course, New Nightmare, he visited that, and undeniably the Scream movies examine that kind of thing. So I think that was something that, after an already legendary career in the 70s and 80s, once we got to the 90s, that seemed to be his niche a little bit, because he would go on, of course, to make 4 Scream movies. And even when he did that, even when he did 2 Nightmare on Elm Street movies, even when he was always pretty much doing horror movies, sticking to that genre because it's something that he enjoyed, that he liked, he never really made the same movie twice. There was always something that he was looking for, something that he wanted to have something to say about, basically, and something that we could talk about. A horror movie, you don't really always kind of talk about its themes afterwards, talk about its characters afterwards, but I think Wes Craven could provoke that, which is an incredible gift, which, he had the skill, had the intelligence, had the craft. He could have been making so-called quote-unquote legitimate movies or whatever, though I would certainly argue that his movies are, but you know what I mean, he could probably have been starting out in horror, as so many do, then moving on to more legitimate type of movies, Oscar darling type of movies, which I always found interesting that he did that Meryl Streep movie, Music of the Heart, which he directed her to an Oscar nomination for, which is kind of cool. Which the story always kind of changes on that one, like whether he really wanted to do that or was like an obligation kind of film. I don't know, but I just always thought that was interesting. But you always notice that he's taking risks, and not always would it work out. Let's put Eddie Murphy in a vampire movie. Let's see how that plays. You look across his whole filmography. That is a daring filmography. It really, really, truly is. And so, to now face it being at the end, that's always incredibly sad. I'm not always, I don't know, I don't always feel comfortable doing these videos where, you hear of a figure's death and you want to have a word on it, kind of eulogize them, basically. I'd kind of hope, here I am, someone who goes on YouTube, talks about movies. If I truly, have an admiration for someone, want to talk about them, hopefully I express my fondness in my reviews and what I talk about things. I always hate kind of to do this, but it's Wes Craven, and his impact is undeniable, and like it is always sad to pretty much have to kind of sum up your feelings about this person in a very awkward kind of video, and say goodbye. That's the worst thing. But at the same time, you know, this was yesterday that the news broke out of his death. Had died of brain cancer, which I was not aware, and it seems like not a lot of other people were aware that was something that he had. I guess he just didn't want to make it public knowledge or what have you. So to learn that, you know, that's very upsetting. But you know, it's Wes Craven. I mean, you gotta say a final word on him. He's one of the best, undeniably. You know, even like he would joke himself. I think it was in the Never Sleep Again documentary about you know, the Nightmare on Elm Street movies. His kind of observation was, I know the huge impact of Freddy Krueger. I know that the day I die, the newspaper headlines are going to read, creator of Freddy Krueger, Wes Craven, passes away, which, you know, that's just his type of morbid humor, I guess, which in a weird way, not necessarily true, as we found yesterday. Much more celebratory than that, I would say. Sure, you get that. Sure, hey, this guy created Freddy Krueger, let's give him his due. But a lot of the headlines I saw, you know, were horror legend Wes Craven, horror maestro, horror master Wes Craven, iconic writer-director Wes Craven. And that's very satisfying to see. You know, to see not just the news headlines, but on social media, you know, it does always kind of ease the blow a little bit, you know, when you see how much this person was loved, and truly he was loved and appreciated and revered, and he's Wes fucking Craven. So it is hard to say goodbye. It really is. But, you know, I wanted to do this video because basically, I mean, he's, you know, in so many ways the reason why I started a YouTube channel. He did Nightmare on Elm Street. The reason I wanted to do a YouTube channel was to talk about Nightmare on Elm Street, because, you know, I didn't see too many people talking about it, and I want to be part of that. I want to talk about these movies, because I think A Nightmare on Elm Street is a movie worth talking about. Wes Craven makes movies that are worth talking about. It's a sad thing, there will never be another Wes Craven movie, but he's left us with a lot to talk about. So, rest in peace, Wes Craven. You are the man. You are a legend. You are the maestro. You are the icon. Very sad today to see you go. But the legacy of Wes Craven lives on, and he's given us some great films. So that's my video for today. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.